topic. Continuing with the theme of video game movies, like I mentioned off the top, a lot of video games are being adapted into movies, TV shows, and we're getting a lot of news in 2021. So I thought, why don't we just talk a little bit about the video game movie news that we got recently? The first one being that there's going to be a Sonic the Hedgehog 2!
Ah, yes.
Yes.
That's exciting. And it's coming like in a year. It's like way sooner than anyone expected.
On the same day as Spider-Verse 2, which is
one of those.
It is very bold. I feel like it's probably going to be Sonic that's going to move.
I would hope so.
They're going to move their 100%. Release date just because they cannot compete with Spider-Verse, although me loves a good Tails, And Tails is actually going to be in Sonic 2 at the end of the first Sonic movie. There was that tease that we're going to see Tails, and now it's confirmed when they announced the release date and the release that the second one's coming out. We see in the logo Tails. His two tails. How do you guys feel about a second Sonic movie? Do we want to see Jim Carrey come back as Dr. Robotnik?
Absolutely.
100%. 100%. I wasn't like the biggest fan of the Sonic Hedgehog movie. Like it was charming. Yeah. But like nobody can deny that Jim Carrey he steals the show.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That is like
classic Jim Carrey.
Old school like Ace Ventura, like body humor Jim Carrey, like different weird faces, doing all that, contorting his body and stuff like that. Like that was classic Jim Carrey on full display, and I'd love to see him return. Especially because at the end of the movie he was like full on, accurate looking Dr. Robotnik.
I'm excited for that. That's gonna be
And the thing is too, right? Like I feel like for a lot of people who watch the movie, at the end of the movie when we saw Dr. Robotnik like that, I don't know for you guys, but it kind of clicked like, we don't need any other humans. We just need Dr. Robotnik and Sonic and his crew. Let's do that for the second one.
Agreed. Right? I'm not super excited for it. The first Sonic to me kind of felt like a cheap Detective Pikachu. Like there was like a chemistry like missing there. I'm gonna be honest. I don't even remember the name of the guy that Sonic meets.
I don't think you need to.
Generic
the guy who played Cyclops.
Yeah.
Oh,
James Marsden.
That's all I know.
That's
James Marsden.
The real question then is Sonic in the MCU, Fox multiverse, maybe.
X-Men versus Sonic.
Yeah,
get it now.
That's the big one we're setting up. Yeah.
That's the movie we all need. Please, never. Yep. Yes, Malik, you were saying.
This is just one of those things that I don't think anybody really asked for, but they figured they could make some money off of it. I mean, just in the whole scope of like video game franchises becoming movies and TV shows, I almost favor TV shows versus movies. I feel like movies is such a lower risk though than TV shows. It's not as much investment.
Yes.
Sure.
I feel like you have lots of.
It depends. Go ahead.
I feel like you have. Yeah, I feel like you have a lot of risk in terms of like blockbuster movies coming out because of the marketing that happens around them. However, and maybe this is where Caboose was going with this. When we have like The Mandalorian, Game of Thrones, Watchmen, like these highly produced TV shows that now have like blockbuster movie budgets.
Yep.
I think that's kind of changing where there's lots of risk that could go in, especially when you're associated with just any franchise that has made lots of money.
Yeah. And it also gives you an opportunity to like expand those stories. Like a video game inherently is anywhere between like 10 to 50 hours commitment where you get to learn about these characters and the world that surrounds them. So a 2-hour movie, unless you're doing like a bare bone story, kind of like Sonic, no offense to the Sonic movie, but in a way that you can actually know these characters and feel like, you have an understanding about the creator's vision. You need that. And I think shows are a great format for that. Episodic, you really get a full character arc that way.
But you mentioned something really great, like Sonic, right? I think movie works for Sonic. Sonic lore, yes, there is lore in there, but let's be real.
Sure.
For someone to be a fan of Sonic, the lore is not that interesting. To tell you the honest truth, it's very basic, right? So committing a TV show, unless you're doing something like Teen Titans Go, where it's like made for children's, it's based on the comedy. I don't think it makes sense to then dive into a TV show, right?
Sure.
Especially if it's not animated for Sonic. But like we're going to talk about in just a few, some other video game franchises, I think it completely makes sense to go the option of a TV show.
Absolutely.
Yes. Right. There are some games, because of the way that they are as games and the way that, you know, they're meant to be played over however many hours, 20, 30, 40 hours, they need to be made into like a TV show because of the fact that it's long form content and there's a lot of story to tell. You can't condense it into 2 hours. And the only way you do condense it into 2 hours is if you're banking on the idea that it'll be a franchise thing and you can make more than one film. And that's just never guaranteed with film. Yeah. You know, I look at Mortal Kombat. Sorry to cut you off, Malik, but I look at Mortal Kombat and like part of me thinks, you know, there is enough lore here where they could make it like an HBO Max original show. And maybe they might do some stuff like that, like just a straight up Scorpion Sub-Zero show. Like that could be cool. But you can kind of just tell the bare bones story of Mortal Kombat in a 2-hour movie and get the point across. And they already did it. Like they did it with the 90s movie. Honestly, they told the tournament, they have all the characters in there. It's cheesy. You know, it's a guilty pleasure for a lot of people, but it's solid, you know, like it works. And they could do that again. Absolutely. If they're going to take it a little more seriously and make it a little cooler, more modern, sweet. I'm all for that. But there are some games, yes, where you can't condense that into 2 hours. We've seen it fail. We've seen, you know, stuff like Assassin's Creed. You can't do that in 2 hours. There's just too much story to tell to condense it into 2 hours. I'm trying to think of other video game movies that have been just absolute catastrophes. One that should work is Resident Evil, but there was just not the right
first
people.
Resident Evil though. The first Resident Evil movie, I think it was a solid job of telling the bare bones. You have Raccoon, you have Umbrella. They make this virus, zombies. There you go. And that's what they did. But then they tried to, the problem with the Resident Evil films is then they tried to like put so many characters in one film and then try to put all these different explanations. And it's like, whoa, we need multiple games to get there. How are you going to even just encapsulate that in 2 hours, right? So I completely understand what you're saying there, Caboose. I want to talk about one of those video games that I think we will all agree on cannot be put into a movie, and that is The Last of Us. We got some Last of Us news with casting. Pedro Pascal is going to be Joel for The Last of Us, and then Bella Ramsey was recently announced to be Ellie. How do you guys feel about this? Of course, Pascal is from The Mandalorian and Ramsey's from Game of Thrones. How do you guys feel about this casting news?
Well, they're both from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, they're both.
It's like Mandalorian. I don't care about anything else. He is the Mandalorian in my eyes.
I will say, I don't know if anyone had heard when it was right before the casting was announced for Pedro Pascal. There were some rumors circulating that Mahershala Ali was offered the role of Joel. I would love to see that. If I'm being honest, I think Mahershala Ali is like an A-class actor. Like he is such an incredible actor. But Pedro Pascal, really excited to see him in this. I think he fits the role. He suits the role really well. You know, I think he can get that Southern kind of accent that Joel has pretty down pat. We heard a little bit of it in like Kingsman.
True.
And Bella Ramsey, she's a great actress. She is so good in Game of Thrones.
I think I am actually more excited for her as Ellie than Pedro Pascal as Joel. I feel like Joel's not that. He is a complicated character, but he's male, lost family, looking for family, and stranded girl. You know, the dynamic that she can bring to Ellie is going to be very exciting. And how she because in Game of Thrones, I'm not sure how much of Game of Thrones you guys have watched. She is this little girl running a country amongst all of these hardened warrior men, and she has the balls to stand up, you know, for her and her people. And so seeing that kind of powerful performance from a young female in a room full of, you know, a stellar cast of men, and to really shine and take the show away, I think that's what I'm excited for her.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I think Ellie is is such a complicated character for so many reasons, but I want to point out she is the only, and we all know this, but I feel like we always just like blow over this. She's the only one who cannot be turned.
She's immune.
Weight that carries, right? And we really get, you know, in part 2 that we get more of that story of the weight that it carries. In the first one, we don't like near the end we kind of get that, but I want them to really focus on how complicated Ellie is as a character. I think Joel, there is an opportunity there, depending on where they pick up in the, I don't believe they actually went into detail on where they're picking up from the video games, if it's starting from the very start of the outbreak or not. But I feel like losing a family could be, you know, a family member could be very relatable. How traumatic that scene could be played out, I think could make for an interesting Joel.
I really hope that they do the winter scene well. I think that will be a pivotal moment of how the whole series turns out. How they do winter is going to like be very important for me personally, because that's when you truly get the dynamic switch. That was such an important part of the game.
No, absolutely. I think that's like one of the most pivotal moments of the entire, I would say 2 games, to be honest, because that's when that relationship finally cracks and you get to see like, okay, that they actually care about each other in this fundamental way. I'm just excited to see, like, because we're spending so much time with these characters and the world, like, what are they going to do new? I really hope that they don't just do like a scene by scene adaptation. I really hope that they incorporate new elements to the series, because I mean, if they plan on just doing, okay, season 1 is the first game, season 2, that's kind of boring. I don't really want that. I would much rather see them, like, even the first game, for instance, they take the approach of like breaking each season into an arc of its own. I would love to see a full season just in each of those 4 seasons. That would be amazing. Like, just get a full season of that winter, right? Like leading into I can't remember the villain's name, but leading into that, like, I think that's the best way to approach it, just to extend not only like the character development, but the show itself.
I agree. And I think that we have an all-star cast here so far. That if your front runners are an incredible young actress in Bella Ramsey, and then Pedro Pascal, who's just on a hot streak right now. Like you're only going to continue to go up from there. To have Craig Mazin being the showrunner after what he did with Chernobyl, to have Neil Druckmann being so fully. I think what I love as well the most about this is, and I don't know if this is the case for something like Mortal Kombat, we haven't heard a lot about whether or not Ed Boon was consulted or if he had any sort of say in anything. Neil Druckmann is very involved with the project. He is working right there alongside the showrunner in promoting it, in sharing his excitement for it, and I'm assuming as well in the process of writing the show. And so I wonder if he's going to want to implement some new ideas, maybe some ideas that he couldn't, you know, utilize or lean into for the game that he thinks could work for the show. I think that could be great. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor when they made The Last of Us that he thinks now he can take the time or have the opportunity to throw into this show. So there could be some new stuff that I think for sure there will be some new stuff that we see out of this game. And I agree with Steve wholeheartedly. And the reason that I was pointing that out is because with that all-star cast so far, with everything that's shaping this show up, there is certainly a possibility we see multiple seasons out of this. You know, and on top of all that, it being an HBO show, there's going to be a lot of money put into this. Like I can see there being multiple seasons of this Last of Us show. And so in that, I would also love to see each season being tackled in a different, you know, season of the year, right? One season of the show is the summer or the winter or so on and so forth, because enough happens during those arcs in the game that could fill an entire 10 episodes of a show.
That would be a huge cliffhanger. Joel gets hurt and then it's the end of the season.
Exactly.
You know, Do you guys? So I have a question for you guys about this. Do
Sure.
you want the clickers to feel? Or I guess let's look at the overall like of the world. Do you want it to feel more of this Bird Box? You got to be quiet. There's these zombies around every corner, or do you want it to be more of the 23 Days Later, where it's like, you know, the zombies are here. There's, you know, these zombies, these weird creatures. You got to be more worried about the people, or do you guys want more of?
I think worry about the people. I think that was always one of the things in The Last of Us. Yes, the clickers are all scary, but the people are interesting. You have people that are completely insane. You have people that are trying to save the world, but they're in their insane. They will go to extreme lengths to do it. I think that's more interesting, especially as we've had like this oversaturation of zombie shows. We know what a zombie looks like. If you want it, you know, if you want to call them infected, you could call them whatever you want, but they're zombies, right? We know that. So I want something a bit more interesting where it's like The Quiet Place, where you have to be silent. It's more based on
I want that tension.
Interaction. Yes, the tension, the interaction between characters.
I agree.
Yeah, I want those moments where they do find themselves in front of a clicker to mean something. Like, I don't want it to be kind of like The Walking Dead, where every episode revolves around them taking out a clicker and doing all that. Like, I want it to be building up, like you said, Caboose, that tension of, you know, when they do stumble upon a clicker, like, what's going to happen? What do they have on their person to like defend themselves? Like, those moments are awesome. Yeah. And
then they could build to something like an episode with where they got to face off against a bloater, you know, and then we can get some action there.
Exactly.
That's like one of the infected where you got to face them head on, you know? Yeah. But I would love a scene where it's in the dark. They got a brick or a bottle, a room full of clickers, and it's just pure intensity. I'm all for that. And, you know, in talking about Craig Mazin, Craig Mazin, if anybody watched Chernobyl, there is an episode that has that same level of like anxiety-inducing stuff. And it's so good. And if there's anyone who I would trust with something like this property, it would be him, especially after watching Chernobyl.
Absolutely. It's funny you say that, because that was the first scene that came to mind when they announced this.
I know,
Craig, I was like, oh, no way. Like, that's perfect. Everyone go watch Chernobyl, because it's one of the best like miniseries out there.
Yeah, really, really good.
Yeah.
All right, with that, I do want to get to one more casting news before we take a break. And we're going to be talking about this one quickly. It's about the Borderlands movie, which I'm a huge Borderlands fan. I'm really excited about it. And it's now confirmed. We know that Kevin Hart was going to be Roland. We now know that Jamie Lee Curtis is going to be Patricia Tannis, which I find is just like perfect.
I love that.
That's amazing.
As well as Jack Black is going to be Claptrap. And of course, we knew before Kate Blanchett is going to be a Lilith, which I think that's really great casting. I don't know. Okay, I'm kind of... Kevin Hart is the one that, like, I'm just like, I don't know.
What the hell? Okay, I'm a huge Borderlands fan. That is one of the first games I, like, really got into games with. I just started replaying Tales from the Borderlands with my girlfriend, and I'm just reminding myself how much I love this world and like the humor, but also like how engaging the characters, like how well written the characters are. And Kevin Hart as Roland?
Because Roland is such a, like, he doesn't take any crap, you know?
He's a hard ass. Like,
yeah.
And he's buff. He is short. Roland is short, though.
Is he?
Like that was the only criteria, maybe.
He's a little bit shorter than the other characters.
He's a little bit shorter than the other characters, but maybe, you know, obviously Borderlands is going to be a comedy based on how Borderlands is. It's funny. Maybe the casting of Kevin Hart is to bring more comedy.
I hate to be the person to say this, but they should have cast Kevin Hart as Claptrap.
No,
honestly, right? Yeah,
he would be a no, but I think Jack Black could be. I think Jack Black in this movie show, whatever it's going to be, is going to be great. I think that he would fit no matter what. But like Claptrap would be a better role for Kevin Hart than the Roland.
Okay,
but with the casting, they've nailed where they want the comedy to be, and I love
exactly.
That. Hear me out though. We got Jack Black, we got Kevin Hart. We pretty much got the Jumanji cast. Right. When's The Rock getting cast as Brick? When's The Rock getting cast as Brick?
It has to be
saying.
It has to be coming.
I'm just saying.
It has to happen. There's no way that The Rock is not going to be in this as Brick.
Let me call him up. I got him on speed dial.
All right. You do that while we take a quick break. We're going to be back talking more about BlizzCon and the Nintendo Direct. So stay tuned.